It could only go where the owner can go.
Is that kol?
Kol. V'shalhevet and
Flame.
b'chol makom
Makes sense.
could go anywhere. Now Rashi asks the question. We know that you can't hold a flame. You cannot have a flame anywhere. How is it? How can you even have a shaila where the flame is different than the actual coal? Why are we discussing flame?
Like a torch. You can't hold a torch?
But since you could, torch exists. The flame on the torch exists because of the candle, whatever the wood. So you could be only talking about whatever. Just say it simpler. Whatever the actual torch, the actual wood, the base that's burning could go. That's where the fire could go. How are we differentiating? What's the case where we're only discussing shall have it the flame on itself? So Rashi says, "Kagon shehidlik ner b'shal have it chavero." He lit a candle through a candle of his friend.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like I explained to you, I just gave you an example with cigarette, right? You get the fire from someone. Then we say, Rashi continues, "Eino me'akef." It does not stop him. The fact that he has now the flame from the other guy, it does not all of a sudden stop him. He can't go further. You're carrying something outside of the tchum. You're carrying the fire outside of the tchum.
Right, not the cigarette, but you took the cigarette, you lit something else with it, and that you take.
No.
I'm confused.
He took the actual.
Well, cigarette is a good case because when you have a cigarette, you have a flame in the cigarette. We're talking about a cigarette that's lit.
Yeah.
I think a cigarette's more of an ember. I think nicotine is
Okay, a torch.
It's amber.
Torch, okay, fine.
Amber is one fine case
But
because
if you light a cigarette, it's not like you actually can it's not physical, the fire.
so one approach is maybe physical fire, not physical. What do you mean it's not physical?
No, but I'm saying if you lit the cigarette, you're only carrying the cigarette, not the physical fire. I mean, I don't know.
Because to you it doesn't
Right,
sound
it
like it's
doesn't
anything,
really
right?
look like it.
Good. I like it. I like it. Let's say I'll make it a little more. Let's say you have a torch. Would you say the torch or the flame is also?
It's a physical
That you would agree. So the flame is physical. So let's leave this cigarette case alone. Let's take a flame case. I have a flame. I have my own torch, and I got fire from Mark.
Okay.
Can now the fact that and I'm carrying the torch.
Right.
Truthfully, when we look at the torch, what's the main part of the torch? The flame or the torch?
The torch, I think.
wood.
The flame.
The actual holding.
What, torch without a flame
base.
is useless.
The torch is what?
Yeah, Yehuda is right. You're carrying a torch, lit torch.
Okay.
What's the main part of the torch? The fire or the actual wood?
Fire.
I think the fuel. Otherwise, you have no flame.
No. Like you are thinking too philosophical. Yeah, sometimes could be too philosophical. When you're carrying a torch, going with a torch. You're going through, going into a tunnel in Gaza, right, with a torch. You need the torch. You go at night in the woods
In the forest.
with the torch, right? What's the main part? The fire, the flame, or the actual torch?
Flame,
In order for you to answer this question, remove one. Will you still accomplish what you need? And if your answer is yes, that means that it's not the crucial, it's not essential. But if your answer is no, that's the essential part.
Okay, so where's your flame without?
So you're going with the flame. Remove one. Remove the actual
Fire.
wood, but leave the flame there. Let's say
You have no flame though. What do you mean remove?
Let's say you would be able to
So philosophically, let's say.
you would be able to hold the flame in your hand.
Yeah.
Would you still accomplish what you need?
Yes,
You don't
Yes.
need to have a purpose.
Remove the flame and just hold the stick in your hand. Would you be able to accomplish what you have? No. So that means that flame is essential.
Right.
Now, if the flame is essential, that means that everything else, it's like not there.
Nullified.
is nullified. So, therefore, we have a big question over here. Gemara says that if I got flame from you, I use my torch, I got flame from you, the fact that it's your flame is not really putting limits on me where I could go. Wherever I could go, I will take it. Even if you cannot go there anymore,
Right.
I could take your flame there.
It makes sense. Right.
What's the explanation?
Right. It doesn't classify the flame as his object, his possession. It's its own entity that could be transported anywhere. So he has a flame. He, on his whatever utensil he uses to carry this flame, he has a limit for himself. But if he gives you the flame onto your utensil, you have the limits of your utensil, not his utensil. Is that right understanding?
No, I don't like the
Because
fact
the
that
utensil is the major part of the conversation,
No,
right?
utensil is what defines your limit.
Correct. Because without
flame
that,
could be viewed as someone's possession. Flame
Right.
is something tangible.
Right.
Flame is physical. Flame is energy. Flame is good. Yeah, you're right. You need it. You need fuel. You need it to be held by something.
You can't take his torch anywhere you want in your rishus.
No.
You have to follow his rishus.
Yes.
But if you bring your own torch and you take it from his flame, you
Yes.
follow your own rishus.
The question is why.
But if you look at the fire, even if you take from him, you're not actually physically taking.
Well, you are physically, you're transporting it. It's
Transferring.
transferring, yeah,
So the fire is something that you transfer easily, not like physically taking that he's gonna have less
Right.
than you had originally. So it's basically, he's not actually taking from him, it's actually transferring part of it, but he's not having less of it. So you figure that it's not actually.
Very good. Markila is he's like in the direction of the right answer.
Okay.
So I figured he can probably carry it because it's
Correct. Very good.
He's not.
Very good. Talmid Chacham. I would want to answer like this.
This thing is-
When we deal with flame, whatever flame I have now is not the same that I had a second ago. Because energy is emitted and is released into the air in the form of light and heat. And now you're taking more of the fuel and transforming into more energy. So when I took the flame from you, that moment it was yours. Once it burns, it uses the carbon to, once the carbon burnt out, that your particular fuel burnt out, now the flame is using, now it's my fuel that's burning.
Right.
So it's not the original shall have it flame as before.
Shall have it is what? Shall have it is flame.
Flame.
Is that why we allowed to use the light on Yom Tov from one source to another?
No, that's
One cooking,
It's
right? I know,
cooking.
but I'm saying, is that part of the?
No.
No, it's not.
That's why, by the way, that could explain different halacha. That if we know that if a goy cooked food for me on Shabbat, am I allowed to eat it?
A goy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
No.
No?
In a regular situation, no.
No, goy's not allowed.
But if it's a hole, I've heard it sometimes.
Yeah, we're not talking about chol. Well, let's say goy shechted an animal for me. Am I allowed to eat it? No. Let's say goy built a house for me. So Shiloh, am I allowed to live in it? Then it's like,
Really? Well, go ahead and build all these houses for everyone.
You pay for them.
That's explanation. They doing their work. They're not really
Ah.
working for me. There's a different explanation for that. But let's say I asked the guy to make for me a vase.
So a sukkah.
He made for me from the raw
Earth?
earth, ceramic, whatever it's called. This
Okay.
clay. He made a pottery, so I can't use it because he made it. He made it. Transgressing the surah. But if you turn on the light, I'm allowed to read to that light. Allowed to
Ah, interesting.
have the Rava, no? Because
That's why we put Caleb in. That's the reason. You try that?
a little bit, yeah, a little bit, yeah.
That
Good.
usually to put the glass in the mikveh too?
Yeah, sure.
Glass.
You're not drinking out of it?
Oh, because
Not the glass?
it has to be only with something you eat from. Yeah. If it's a vase for fruit, yeah, something like that.
I'm saying it's a vase for flowers.
For flowers, no.
Okay, so you don't like
It got me there. Like, very smart. You know, those to get the rabbi, stump the rabbi. Okay, anyway, but the light that he turned on, whatever light is emitted now, is not the same thing as was before. It's already different. It's effects of his original act. So it's not like he created something because it's fleeting. It goes away. So fire goes away. Fire goes away. Previous fire went away. There's a new fire now. We're saying the main thing is the fuel, which is the wood. That is still around. That whoever the owner of the fuel, the fire is really the fuel that is being burnt.
Right.
That's the definition of fire.
Isn't that what I said earlier?
Huh?
Isn't that what I said earlier?
You said, yeah.
We're asking what is the most important part of your torch,
Uh-huh.
right? And I answered that it's the fuel.
It's the fuel.
Torch.
Yes.
You said it's the flame.
It's the flame, right. So
I think you just contradicted your earlier statement.
I think you're right, but
And as the first line of the Mishnah says, is that
what did Mishnah say?
there's no boundary on the flame, but there's a boundary on the fuel, because the fuel is the source of the flame.
Yeah, Mark, you're right. You were right in terms of this halacha of. You see, there's two ways. You analyzed it. Yeah, you're right. You know, sometimes Rabbi asks. We see it's like this. When I asked this question, what's the main part of the torch? Flame or a actual torch? I was asking before we knew the Gemara, before we knew the deep shot in the Gemara.
To get to the answer.
Right.
To get-
So it would be best if you're so smart that you know the answer. Sometimes you could play along with me, and if you know exactly what my plan is. My plan is to bring out a point.
Oh, because you would think that it's the flame.
That's what I was saying, right? In order to now, in all other instances, what's the main part? The flame or
The item itself, the flame,
what's the main part in the bulb? The light or the bulb?
the bulb.
No, the light. Because I need the main part means what do I care about? Let's say I would have the light without the bulb.
So you would care less about the bulb. You want the light.
Who cares about the
You
bulb?
want the light.
Give me the light and that's it.
The whole reason for the
Do I
bulb
need the
exists
bulb?
because it gives
Let's
light.
say a guy goes, okay, let me explain this. You need to do this. You need to understand this. Guy says to a girl, will you marry me? Is he asking her to marry him?
I'm assuming so.
Will you spend the rest of your life with me?
To be his wife.
Or a guy comes and says, I want to get a job. Is he really wants to work here? He wants to have this job?
No, he wants to earn money.
Oh. A guy says to a girl, will you marry me?
He wants to start a family.
Oh. So you see, not all the time what meets the eye is your main intention. Very often you ask one thing, but really you're seeking. There's a difference between asking, request, and seeking something else. So very often you request something, but you're really seeking something else.
Like requesting ceasefire. What are you really asking?
So the same thing here. I come to a store, I say, give me a bulb. Do I need the bulb? I come to the store, I need to buy a bulb. Do I need the bulb? What do you need?
As long as you get light.
You need the light in your house. So my whole life is now bold? No, I need light. In order to get light, I need the bold.
It's a means to an end. Right.
But when it comes to ownership, so really, it's the bottom line. The main thing is the bottom line, is what the final product, the final intent that I need. That's what I need. However, when it comes to ownership, what do I really own? So that we say bold, not the light.
Yeah.
So there's a fine, you have to understand, we're splitting hairs here, and that's the Gemara, it's always splitting hairs. That's what we're doing, okay? That's normal, that's how you learn. Okay. So Gemara, Mishnah says, Hagachelet kiraglei ba'alim, v'shal hevet b'chol makom. Gachelet shal hegdesh, if you have a coal of hegdesh from Bet HaMikdash, from Mizbeach, from the altar. Do you know that on top of the altar there was coal? Mm-hmm. Let's say, imagine you have that.
It was always on, right?
Sure.
The fire.
I can't hear you.
So,
Wasn't it a
I'm
miracle
saying
the
the
fire
fire
came
was
down from
on?
heaven?
No, that's
Right? We're not talking about miracles, we're not talking about where the fire came from. You were talking about the final product, the coal. Just coal, concentrate on the coal. We don't care where it came from. Right now, the coal. Question is, what if I take a cigarette and I light my cigarette from the coal
Then it's bad.
of the Mizbeach? Now, there's not halacha that you're not allowed to use hegdesh for your own benefit. You can't shech the korban to eat it. You cannot take a cup from with the mikdash that they use to pour the blood and drink from it. You're not allowed to use. It's called meila. There is a special isur, chassalech shalom, very bad isur, very grave isur to use something that belongs to Bet HaMikdash for your purposes. So let's say a person lit a cigarette from the coal of Mizbeach. So it says,
we're in the Gemara now.
yeah, in the Mishnah, Hagachel shel hegdesh mo'alin bo. If you took the coal and somehow you used it for something else, let's say you used the coal to start a fire, you used something from hegdesh, you chayav, you have to bear the consequences. Shall have it lo ne'enin bo. But if you just use the fire, you didn't really get any benefit because it's not
Of the Mizbeach.
it's you see it belongs to Mizbeach because it's okay, you're right, it's not over the Mizbeach, meaning because of what we explained earlier, that it always replenishes itself, it's always gone. It's ein bo mamash. It's like something that doesn't really has an identity of its own. You see, the coal, we could, since it's always there, it's a material, it's material rather than energy. So we say it has a identity or belong to Bet HaMikdash. But energy, which is constantly renewing itself, it cannot have an identity anymore. Let's go on. Hamotzi gachel de l'shut rabim chayav, someone who took out on Shabbat a coal into the Reshut Rabim, he carried something tangible and he's chayav, shall have it patur. But if he took out flame, he's patur. Now, question, Gemara is going to deal with this. Mishnah says over here that I took out just the flame, I am patur. I didn't carry anything.
On Shabbat, it said?
On Shabbat. If I took out a coal on Shabbat from my house into the street, I transgressed. If I took out a flame, I did not transgress. I mean, this is just examples of that built on the fact that shall have it, that the flame is not tangible, it's nothing real, it's not really there, right? But the question is, practically, clear, very, very simply, how could you take out a flame on Shabbat without also carrying a coal or torch or candle or even a match, something? You gotta. So why are we talking about? How could we be talking about taking out coal? Let's see Gemara. Tan Rabbanan, Gemara says, Chamisha devorim neimru begachelet. 5 things were said about a coal. Gachelet kiraglei ba'alim. Number 1, the gachelet is like the feet of the owner. V'shal hevet b'chol makom, and the flame go anywhere. Gachelet shall hegdesh. If the coal belongs to hegdesh, Bet HaMikdash, mo'alin bo, then you're not allowed to use it for your benefit. V'shal hevet lo neinin v'lo mo'alin. However, if it's when it comes to the flame, you could use it. Gachelet shel avodah zarah, Let's say you have a coal of avodah zarah asura. It's prohibited. Shall have it muteret. Can you imagine? Let's say we know the halacha from all over the Torah that if you have something that belongs to avodah zarah, idol, you're not allowed to use it. If it's a coal of avodah zarah, you're not allowed to use it. But if it's a flame of avodah zarah, you're allowed to use it.
Does water have the same status as a coal, as a flame?
What does
matter,
What
right?
does matter? Yeah.
Is there any other besides like wind? I guess air, smell, scent.
I think there's nothing energy unless it's maybe a laser beam, maybe light is the same. It has to be energy. Maybe heat.
Heat.
Heat is energy. It has to be that type of thing. Okay, as long if it's a matter, it's real molecules. It's different. So because energy is different, we know the energy is the whole question. What is energy? Is it waves or is it particles?
Light, you mean? What is light?
Light. What is light? Energy a little bit. Probably also like heat could also be viewed a little bit like that. Also question, what is it really? It's not matter, right? Heat.
Well, Einstein says that energy is matter, right? E equals mc squared. Right?
Yeah.
It's the mass of the item multiplied by the square of the speed.
Yes.
So everything has energy. A photon has energy.
No, what do you mean has energy? No. What's wrong with
Can
it?
be converted into
Can be
energy.
converted to
Correct.
energy, right?
So, which
Because
means
it's
the
two
equation works
coins.
both ways.
Because it's two sides of the same coin. I understand that. Fine, but it still doesn't mean that it's. But this is sugya. You see, everything that we have
But
in
the
science.
flame is what? The flame is oxygen, right? It's burning oxygen, right? So there's a chemical formula for fire.
Flame is not oxygen. You need oxygen to burn. It's like you need.
You need a fuel source. You need oxygen.
Fuel is
and
not
ignition.
oxygen. You need carbon. Really, it's carbon.
Carbon, correct. That's a fuel source. It's carbon, but you have to burn it. You have to
You
ignite
need
it.
oxygen in order for combustion to take place. Yeah. So it's not really per se oxygen. It's carbon.
But it's like a flame. It's ethereal, right? Oxygen. It's
But
not-
then
it's
it
not
becomes
tangible, right?
energy, right? It emanates in form of energy. So this is a theory of this is Einstein's theory of relativity, and it's very, very deep. It's one of the secrets of creation. We know it from the Torah. We knew it from the Torah 6,000 years ago. This is not something great. I mean, Einstein, if he would learn, I think that he learned Gemara somewhere, this Gemara, or another Gemara. That's how he got it. Truthfully. But you never know, because he comes out and he says, "I thought of this theory." Really, it's a good Gemara somewhere, right? It's okay, no problem. But really, it's theory of relativity is in the Gemara in a few places.
He needed a job in Princeton. He needed to impress them. So,
Yeah, if you really have your brains, you know the Gemara. It's all here. But anyway, let's go on. Now Gemara says like this. But this is the Gemara. We're learning now the Gemara that actually cannot be understood without Einstein's theory. There's two ways to say it. I cannot understand Gemara without Einstein's theory, which means that Einstein's theory really is in the Gemara. Because if I cannot understand the Gemara without that theory, that means that the only way, exactly, Gemara is telling me that theory. If I need that theory to make sense of the Gemara, the only way the Gemara makes sense, if I know that theory, that means Gemara is telling me that theory. Simple. If the only way to understand it. Okay, let's go on. So now it says, continue. Now, someone who takes a hamatzi gachel l'reshut rabim chayav. Someone who takes out a coal in reshut rabim is chayav. V'shal evet patur. By the way, can it get more relative than this Gemara that says if you're taking out a coal is one halacha, if you're taking out this flame is different halacha? This is what relativity is all about.
Flame on its own.
Yeah, we're gonna see now.
Also.
So look at this. Hamudar hano mechaveira. Someone says, I will never derive any benefit from you. Someone is angry at his friend, and he makes a neder, a oath, that he's never gonna come to his home to drink tea, or he's never gonna borrow anything from him. He's allowed to take his coal. He's allowed to take his. He's not allowed to use his coal, but he's allowed to use the flame.
Oh.
Asur b'chalto mutar b'shalhevet. We're on second white line. So Gemara says that. Ma'ishna, what's the difference? Shalhevet avodah zarah, the shari. Why flame of avodah zarah is permissible? Or ma'ishna the hegdesh the asira, and the hegdesh is prohibited. Gemara answers avodah zarah the miisa ubedili in sheminei. Avodah zarah is disgusting to people, and they naturally don't want to deal with it. The law goes to Rabbanan. So Rabbanan left it as an original concept that it's non-existent, so they allowed it to use. Hegdesh the lo ma'is v'lo bedili in sheminei, but the hegdesh that people deal with a lot goes through Rabbanan.
Hegdesh meaning what?
Holy.
From Bet HaMikdash.
Okay.
From Bet HaMikdash. Goes through Rabbanan. Rabbanan made a gezerah. So really, midaraita, even hegdesh is allowed, but Rabbanan made a gezerah that it shouldn't be allowed in order to prevent people from.
Because since avodah zarah is allowed, you could go the other way, the opposite. Hegdesh also like.
But they keep it separate. Avodah zarah they allowed. They left it as a heter because midaraita it's permissible. So they left flame. But hegdesh they prohibited midarabonon. Midaraita is permissible. Midarabonon is prohibited in order to guard us from using. Because if we'll say use the flame of hegdesh, maybe the person will take the other stuff.
Well, what about avodah zarah? Same thing. If you use the flame of avodah zarah, maybe you could use the other stuff.
So that's exactly what Gemara wants to say, that it's disgusting and people naturally separate from that. In other words, we're not so afraid. We're not so afraid. They might use the flame, but it's not going to lead next step to use the other thing. That's how I want to say. Gemara continues, now what I promised to you, to resolve a problem, how could you take out flame without a base? It says that in the Braita, that someone takes out a coal, chayav, v'shalhevet patur. V'hatanya, Gemara asks, v'hatanya, we learned in Masechet Shabbat, hamotzi shalhevet kol shu chayav. Someone who takes out a flame is chayav. So in other words, there's a stira. In our Mishnah, it says clearly that if you take out flame, patur. In the other Braita, it says that it's chayav. What's going on over here? We're going to have a few answers. Amar Rav Sheshet, Rav Sheshet, kigol shehotziyo bikisam. He took it out in the kisam. Kisam is like a match. He took it out in the match. In other words, he lit a match. Or he has a match, a lit, or a small little wrench. And there's a fire, and he's taking it out in Rashod Rabim. So we're saying chayav. We're saying chayav. So Gemara asks, why are we saying that you chayav on the flame? It says that when are you going to be chayav on the flame? When you took it out through a kisam. The actual flame, we still hold that it's nothing. So I cannot be ever taking out flame. So I'm taking out the kisam, I'm taking out the wood. Let's then be mechayev him, not because of the flame, but because of the actual match. But the let shiur. No, the match does not have a shiur. Now, we know that halachot of taking out things on Shabbat are subject to minimum shiur. In other words, not everything I could take out, I'm going to be chayav. It has to be a substantial thing that I could use at some point somehow. And Gemara says, like, how much do I have to wait? How much of ink should I take out? I cannot take an. Gemara Shabbat says like this. Let's say I'm taking out an ink in the flask. I need to transport ink. I'm taking out ink on Shabbat. Gemara says an interesting thing, that unless there's enough ink to write 2 letters, you're not chayav. Because 2 letters is one. There could be one letter. There's no such word as 1 letter, but there is 2 letters in 1 word. At least 2 letters make. There's 1 word. There's a word that has 2 letters in it. So you have to have enough ink to take out to write 2 letters. Now Gemara says an interesting thing. Let's say I take out less than that. I'll take out less than writing 2 letters. I take out ink in the flask. I am patur even on the flask. In other words, I took out. Okay, I didn't take out the ink because there's not enough, but I did take out the flask, the small little bottle, or maybe the cap, small little cap. Sofrim use they put the ink in the cap. So let's say I'm taking out the cap from soda, and there's ink in it to write one letter. Am I chayav or no? He says completely patur. I am patur on the ink because it's not enough to write two letters, and I am patur on the cap also. Why? Because in my mind, I am taking out ink. I'm not taking out the cap. Cap is just a vehicle. It's just a transport of the ink. So it says cap is batel to the ink. Cap itself is non-existent because it's only transporting the ink. And the ink is not enough to be chayav. So I'm completely patur. Interesting, right?
What's the reason you take so little ink? It's not in for 2 letters. You say.
He didn't know. He he thought that is enough. It turned out not enough.
It's trying to expand.
No, but
the
if you
Concept.
think
We're not talking about practically. You're right. Practically, it's probably not going to happen. But trying to understand the halacha here. Halacha is very fascinating. That you could be you actually carrying something, but because of complex, logical, twisting conclusions, you're not carrying anything. You're not carrying ink. It's not chashuv enough. It's not enough to write. You're not carrying a cap because you're really carrying, in your mind, you're carrying the ink. So your mind is on the ink, not on the cap. If you thought that the cap is important, you would have chayav. But it's not important at that moment. So Gemara says like this: that the question is over here is, he is taking out a match and then that has a fire. So why can't he be chayav because of the actual match? Gemara says because he's not taking out a match. But let's assure a match is not in his mind. It's like a cap. The main thing is flame. This, by the way, answers exactly your question. Look at this. I'm taking out a match on the flame. I'm taking out flame
on the match.
A match with the flame. Am I chayav or no?
Based on your earlier example with the cap, no.
Why? Because a match I don't need. Matches don't there to serve the flame, to deliver the flame. And the flame, also nothing. Flame is fleeting. Flame, we explain, is energy. It's not material. So now I'm completely patur.
So can you take out a torch, a big torch with a flame also, based on that logic? If the flame is fleeting, then the match isn't really, the torch is not where you're trying to hold.
Even the torch is possible.
So you could take a 3-foot torch, a big torch on Shabbat, and you could walk around.
Yeah. Unless you have in mind that I'll use this, unless you'll say, no, you see, there's a difference. Unless you'll say, when I get to that destination, I'm going to put out the flame, and I'm going to use the torch next time. You see, with the match, its existence only as long as there's a flame. Once there's no flame, I just throw it out. But the torch is reusable. So then we could say, no.
torch is significant.
The torch is an item of its own. You maybe in the back of your mind you say, I'm going to reuse it. I'm going to put it out. I'm going to light it again. I'm going to use it next time. I'm planning to do something with it. I want to save it. I don't want to throw it out. It's my thing. So therefore, a torch could be different. Then Gemara says, Rav Sheshet Amar. Okay, we did Rav Sheshet. Then Gemara says, Abaya Amar Rabbi says, Kigon de Shaife Mone Mashcha ve'atle beinura. No, you know what he did? He took a cup, he smeared it with oil, and he lit it. Well, let's say in our terms, let's say I took vodka, I smeared it on top of the cup, and I lit it, and I'm taking out the flame that way. So Gemara says, but he's taking out the actual cup. Gemara says, bechaspa. The actual cup is a shard. It's only a cracked piece of pottery. So he takes cracked pieces of pottery that he's going to throw out. He just puts a little bit of oil on it, lights the oil, and that's how he's taking out. So he's patur on the fire because it's energy, and it's patur on the actual utensil because only a shard. From here we see that if it would be a real cup, he would be chayav. Same thing with the torch because it's a real
Talking about Shabbos right now?
Yes.
We're talking about Shabbos. Oh, you ask me, you're not allowed to move on Shabbat, you're not allowed to move flame at all because you're making fire bigger, smaller, it's called burning. We're not discussing that right now. You're right. That could be a problem.
Concept of the
Okay, I just want to...
Let's just finish till the Mishnah. We have one line. V'teibegle mishum chaspa. But why can't he be chayav on the shard also? Maybe you could reuse the shard for some other things, maybe to scratch your back, maybe to put something. But the late shooter, Gemara says it's not big enough. Because shard also has a minimum shear. There is certain pieces of broken pottery I could still use, and certain minimum shears I can't use anymore. Ditnan, cheres, what is pottery used for? In order to put like a tripod, they used to like prop it up, a certain tripod for cooking. So only if it's big enough to do that, it's chayav. Other than it's really nothing. So if so when it says that if really you are chayav when you're taking out the actual
Pottery.
the flame, then what's the case where you patur? Because there's two braitot. One says the shalhevet patur, and one is shalhevet chayav. No, one second. The last thing that we're learning, interesting thing, that the actual flame could be chiyuv. When I am taking it out with a match, even though match is negligible, and the cup and the piece of shard is negligible, but the actual flame now is a problem. Tosafot explains because the flame is so important to you, so chashuv to you right now, that the actual combination of flame and the shard or the piece of wood, small piece of wood match together, they create an entity. In other words, a lit match, a flame together with that match is an entity because you're using it, because before, when it comes to ownership, it's like this. We're making a chiluk. Mishnah says that if I got flame from Mark and I have my own torch, his ownership of the flame is negligible. It's not really limiting me. But when it comes to taking out things from my house onto Reshut Rabim, over there, just because it's energy and it's going to be fleeting, that's not a reason to make me patur. I'm still chayav because I'm taking out the flame. The flame is considered to be choshev enough, important enough for me that I carried something out. Gemara is making a difference between ownership of the flame. Ownership of the flame is negligible, but the
source,
actual flame is choshev because it's giving me light. It's serving a very important purpose. So that's why Braita says chayav. Now I said earlier it's patur because this is energy and that's not choshev enough. It's not the main thing. But I was wrong because Gemara says chayav. Now Gemara has the final question. But in one place it says patur. Gemara says. But right before the Mishnah. But that we'll learn. Patur. So what's the case where he's patur? Where is that applicable? If he blew it in Reshut Rabim, he blew the fire in Reshut Rabim, that's when he's patur. Why is that patur? He blew somehow the fire in Reshut Rabim. From Shlayachit. No, he actually
blew it from one place to the he brought it by blowing.
You didn't take it from here and then took it.
I was thinking, what if the fire gets extinguished or stops? The flame stops while you're killing.
So we're saying at the end of the day like this, that there is a difference between the ownership of the flame when we explain that the flame itself is not choshev enough in terms of someone else's ownership, but in terms of carrying on Shabbat, the flame is choshev. But when it comes to blowing it out, that's not called carrying out. That's just not an act of carrying, and that's why he's patur. Okay, thank you very much for that.
That's a little tough. The last part is a plot twist. It's a plot twist.
Yes. So it's just giving you the exception of where it's patur. Right? It's not a general rule. It's just giving